So Assalamualaikum and a very good day everyone. My name is Noor Ain and today I'll be presenting our study titled Is the PSCAS Enough? Uncovering Hidden Dimensions of ESL Speaking Anxiety. So our research focuses on the issue of public speaking anxiety or PSA among undergraduate ESL students. Okay, so let's begin with a bit of context. So public speaking anxiety is also known as glossophobia, which is something that many students struggle with, especially during classroom presentations. And for some, it may just cause mild nervousness like sweaty palms or a racing heartbeat. But for other students, it can trigger a real fear or even panic, okay, which makes it very hard for them to speak confidently in front of others. And this problem is not just unique to Malaysia. Okay, because studies have found that in Indonesia, about 88% of senior students experience moderate to high anxiety when speaking publicly. And in Malaysia, more than half of undergraduates report medium levels of anxiety. And in Finland, around 57% of education students also experience high level of speaking anxiety. So clearly, this is not just a local issue, but it's a global concern. Okay, now, for students who speak English as a second language, this anxiety often becomes even stronger. Why? Because they worry that making grammar mistakes or mispronouncing the words or running out of vocabulary. Okay, and this fear of making errors often causes them to stay quiet in class and even when they actually have some good ideas to share. So we wanted to answer three main questions. Okay, first, what are the levels of public speaking anxiety among undergraduate ESL students based on the PSCAS scale? Second, how do these students describe their experiences of anxiety and do their feelings match the PSCAS framework? And third, how can we refine or improve the PSCAS so it better captures students' real experiences of speaking anxiety? So to explore this, we use a mixed method approach. So this means we combine both quantitative and qualitative data. So our participants were 65 undergraduates from University Technology Mara, okay, which consisted of 47 females and 18 male students aged between 18 and 26 years old. So they attended an English proficiency workshop where we distributed the public speaking anxiety scale or PSCAS. And the questionnaire contains 17 items on a 5-point Likert scale, okay, ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we also included one open-ended question, which was, in what situations are you anxious about speaking English? So this question helped us understand when and why students feel anxious, whether it's during class presentation, being corrected by lecturers, or speaking without preparation. Okay, now let's take a look at what we found. Okay, so based on the PSCAS results, the highest mean score came from fear of negative evaluation with a mean of 3.17. Okay, and next was communication apprehension with 3.06, followed by comfort in speaking English with 3.02, and finally test anxiety with 2.98. So this tells us that the fear of being judged is the biggest source of anxiety. Okay, many students worry about how their peers or lecturers see them, especially when they make mistakes. So this supports earlier studies by Tobot and Dowd, which also highlighted fear of judgment as a key factor in language anxiety. Okay, and next, communication apprehension came in the second place. So this refers to the general discomfort or nervousness that students feel when speaking in public, and this supports McCroskey's theory from 1977, which states that communication apprehension can reduce a person's willingness to speak even when they understand the topic well. Okay, and test anxiety was also present, but it seemed less dominant. Okay, so overall, these results show that anxiety comes from multiple sources and that teachers should focus on helping students manage the fear of judgment and communication pressure. Okay, now let's move on to the qualitative findings, okay, which is the open-ended responses. For the first factor, fear of negative evaluation, many students said they were afraid of making mistakes in front of others. And one student said, I always worry that if I make a mistake, my classmates will laugh at me. And another said, I feel like I have to be perfect when I present in front of everyone. So these responses show how strong the fear of being judged can be and how it can affect students' confidence. Okay, so classrooms need to be more supportive, okay, where mistakes are treated as part of learning and not something to be ashamed of. Okay, and for comfort in speaking English, students said they felt okay using English in simple conversations, but they struggled when the topic becomes complex. Okay, and one mentioned, I can speak English, but I freeze when I need to explain my ideas. So this shows that comfort depends on practice. Okay, the more students use English, the more natural it becomes. And this finding supports Liu and Huang's study, which found that regular use of English helps build confidence. When it came to test anxiety, students felt the most pressure during speaking tests or when they had to speak without preparation. And one said, during tests, I can't think straight. And another student added, I get really nervous when I have to speak without preparation. Okay, so this shows that both formal tests and impromptu speaking can cause high stress. And for communication apprehension, many students said that they felt nervous when talking to people who spoke English fluently. Okay, and one student said, I always feel nervous when I have to talk to native speakers. I'm afraid I will sound stupid. And others said meeting new people made them anxious because they worried their English was not good enough. And this shows that perceived differences in language ability actually play a big role in communication fear. And finally, some students mentioned general anxiety, okay, which is not tied to any specific situation. They describe the feeling of being shaky, pressured, or blank-minded even before speaking. Okay, so based on this, we decided to introduce a new theme, which is general anxiety, okay, to better capture this experience. So based on the results of our study, we realized that the original PSCAS, which includes the four main factors, did not actually fully capture all the real experiences that students describe in the open-ended responses. Okay, so we proposed several refinements to make the scale more comprehensive and relevant for today's ESL learners. Okay, so first, for the fear of negative evaluation, we noticed that the original items mainly focus on general fear, but they did not specifically mention fear of making language-related mistakes such as pronunciation or grammar errors. So many students said that they worried about being judged when they mispronounced a word or when they use a wrong tense. Okay, so to reflect that, we revised several questions to include this fear directly. Okay, for example, questions now highlight the fear of being judged for language mistakes during presentations. And we also added parts that mention physical symptoms of anxiety like shaking or sweating, okay, to show both emotional and bodily reactions. And second, for comfort in speaking English, students said they could handle simple conversations, but they became anxious when they had to explain complex ideas or unfamiliar topics. Okay, so the revised items go beyond asking whether they feel comfortable speaking English. Okay, now they ask how confident students feel when they need to elaborate or express deeper ideas, okay, especially during academic presentations. So this gives a better picture of how their comfort level changes depending on the situation. Okay, and third, for test anxiety, the original items focus on general nervousness, okay, but it didn't address exam pressure or impromptu speaking. So many participants said that they became anxious during speaking tests or when they had to answer unexpected questions. And to capture that, we revised the existing questions to highlight formal assessments and also added a new one, okay, that measures impromptu speaking anxiety, okay, which were situations where students have to speak without preparation. And this helps to identify students who may perform well in practice but struggle in real test situations. And fourth, for communication apprehension, we made adjustments based on the common theme of intimidation when talking to fluent or native speakers. So students often compare themselves to others and felt nervous about sounding less fluent. Okay, so to address that, the revised items now include phrases about speaking to people with higher English proficiency or meeting new people for the first time. And we also added a new question, okay, which is question 19, which directly measures this specific type of communication fear. And finally, we introduced a new factor which is called general anxiety. So this came from students who said they felt nervous or uneasy even before speaking, okay, sometimes hours or days before a presentation. So their anxiety was not limited to a specific task but existed as a constant background feeling. Okay, so to represent this, we added a new item, which is question 20, which states, I experience general anxiety that affects my ability to speak English confidently, even in non-speaking situations. So this helps to measure the broader emotional state that might influence speaking performance indirectly. To conclude, our study found that fear of negative evaluation and communication apprehension are the two strongest sources of speaking anxiety among ESL students. And however, through our thematic analysis, we discovered new aspects like fear of impromptu speaking, the intimidation of talking to fluent speakers, and also general anxiety, okay, which were not included in the original PSCAS. Okay, so we introduced 3 new items. Okay, for example, question 18 for impromptu speaking anxiety, question 19 for communication with fluent speakers, and question 20 for general anxiety in academic situations. So these additions make the PSCAS more comprehensive and relevant to today's ESL learners, and we hope that future researchers will continue testing this revised version in other contexts, okay, to confirm its validity. And most importantly, we hope that educators can use these findings to create more supportive and less judgmental classrooms, okay, where students can practice speaking without fear. Okay, so simple activities like ungraded speaking sessions, group discussions, and positive feedback can make a huge difference in helping students to build their confidence. Okay, so thank you very much for listening, and that is all from me. Thank you.